The night began with a small sound that would not stop. Laura lay on her bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling as the clock ticked past 11. The house was supposed to be calm at that hour. It always had been since her husband died. Silence had become the rule, heavy but predictable. Tonight, that rule was broken. Laughter floated from the far end of the hallway. It was warm and careless, the kind that came from young people who did not worry about time. Laura knew the voice as well. One belonged to her stepson, Ethan. The other belonged to his college friend, Mark, who had arrived earlier that evening. With a backpack and an easy smile, Laura turned on her side and pulled the blanket closer, hoping the sounds would fade. They didn't. A low conversation followed, then the soft strum of a guitar. Someone missed a note and laughed again. She exhaled slowly. Ethan had grown up in this house. Laura had met him when he was 12, shy and guarded, still learning how to live with a stepmother. Over the years, they found a careful balance. Not close like mother and son, but kind, respectful, steady. After his father passed away, Ethan stayed distant but loyal, visiting when he could, calling on holidays, checking in more than he realized. Tonight was his first long visit in months. Laura closed her eyes, but her mind refused to rest. The sounds from the guest room didn't bother her because they were loud. They bothered her because they made the house feel alive again. And life, when it returned suddenly, could hurt. She remembered nights when the same hallway echoed with different sounds. Her husband's voice, his slow steps, the way he used to pause at the door before coming to bed, as if making sure she was really there. Those memories had faded enough to survive most days, but at night they came back sharp and clear. The guitar stopped. The talking softened. Laura thought sleep might finally come. Then Ethan laughed again, louder this time. Full and open. Laura sat up. She rubbed her face and looked around the bedroom. Everything was the same as it had been for years. The dresser, the lamp, the empty side of the bed. She had learned to accept the space, to treat it like part of the room instead of a loss. But tonight the space felt wide and cold. She stood and wrapped a sweater around herself. The hallway light was off, but a thin line of brightness slipped from under the guest room door. She didn't plan to interrupt them. She just wanted to understand why she felt so restless. She walked slowly, careful not to make noise. The floor creaked under her step and she froze, listening. The voices paused, then continued. They hadn't noticed her. Ethan was talking about school, about finishing his degree, about not knowing where he wanted to live next. Mark listened, offering short replies, joking when the mood grew too serious. Laura leaned against the wall, unseen, and felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. Ethan was no longer a boy. His future was wide open. He was moving forward without fear, without the weight she carried. She wondered when she had stopped doing the same. Her thoughts drifted, uninvited, to Daniel. Daniel had been a friend of her husband's, someone she had known for years but never truly noticed until after the funeral. He had shown up with food, with quiet company, with patience. He never pushed. He never asked questions she wasn't ready to answer. He simply stayed. In the months after the loss, they talked often about books, about old movies, about the strange feeling of starting over when you never planned to. Sometimes, when he smiled at her, Laura felt something warm move through her chest. She always told herself it was gratitude, nothing more. But late at night, when she was honest, she knew it wasn't that simple. A pause in the conversation down the hall pulled her back. Ethan's voice lowered. He was talking about a girl he had loved once, someone who had left. His words were careful, but the pain was still there. Laura swallowed hard. Loss sounded the same at every age. She felt tears rise before she could stop them. Not loud, not dramatic. Just quiet tears that slid down her face as she stood in the wise. As she stood in the wise essays, it stood in the wise says, I complete supplice end of completing. Like you're gonna die. Like look at this. And we all know, I've been exploring that. I've been exploring that path, and what it was semaine loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears that cried dot trast, a key kalai dasest, dark hallway. Listening to two young men talk about life as if it were still beginning. She wiped her cheeks and stepped back. Returning to her room without a sound, the clock read 1:37 a.m. Laura lay down again, staring at the ceiling, her heart too full to settle. She thought about the years ahead, about mornings alone, about evenings like this one, where the house reminded her of everything she had and everything she no longer did. She wondered if this was how life would always feel caught between memory and silence. The laughter stopped at some point. The lights went out. The house finally grew quiet. But sleep never came. Laura remained awake until the sky outside her window began to lighten. Her thoughts moving fast, then slow, then fast again. Somewhere between night and morning, she realized something she had been avoiding. She wasn't just tired. She was lonely. And that truth, more than the noise, was what kept her awake all night. The morning light crept through the curtains slowly, painting the bedroom walls in soft gold. Laura opened her eyes, aware immediately that she had not slept well. Her body felt heavy, but her mind was alive, buzzing with the echoes of the night before. The laughter, the conversation, the music, they were still there in her memory, as vivid as if it had happened moments ago. She stretched carefully, noticing the faint ache in her shoulders, a reminder of the long hours she had spent lying awake. In the dark, she moved to the kitchen, her steps light, almost cautious. The house was quiet now, different from the chaos of the night. It felt spacious in a new way, almost inviting, and Laura realized that quiet did not always mean loneliness. It could mean time to think, to breathe, to understand. She filled the coffee pot and watched the liquid drip slowly into the glass carafe, the aroma filling the small kitchen. It was comforting in a way that felt like an anchor, something steady to hold on to after a restless night. Ethan and Mark appeared shortly after, moving through the kitchen with the casual energy of young men who had just woken up. They were apologetic almost immediately. Ethan's eyes met hers, calm and sincere. "Sorry if we kept you up," he said, his voice carrying that familiar warmth that had made her feel protective of him all these years. Laura smiled gently, shaking her head. "It's okay," she said, realizing it truly was. The house had needed this life, these voices, this laughter. She wasn't angry, she wasn't frustrated. She was relieved in an odd, quiet way. The night had reminded her that life, though often unpredictable, continued to move forward as they ate breakfast together. Small talk filling the gaps. Laura noticed the subtle shifts in both young men. Ethan, always the thoughtful one, seemed more open than usual, sharing stories from his classes, observations about people, little insights that revealed his growing confidence. Mark added jokes and lighthearted commentary, making Ethan laugh more than he had in weeks. Laura felt a gentle smile tug at her lips, recognizing the life in the room. It wasn't just their energy. It was a reminder of the world beyond the grief and quiet that had dominated the house for too long. After breakfast, Ethan and Mark gathered their things, ready to leave for the day. Laura walked them to the door, feeling a mixture of pride and melancholy. Watching them leave, she realized that she was seeing more than just young men moving through their lives. She was witnessing the continuation of her own journey. Time had not stopped. It had only taken a different pace. She waved as they stepped outside, the morning sun catching the edges of their hair. And she felt a strange sense of gratitude for the sleepless night. Once the door closed, Laura returned to the quiet house. She moved slowly, almost meditatively, putting away dishes, tidying the living room, letting the sunlight warm her skin. The quiet now felt like an opportunity rather than a burden. She sat by the window with her coffee, letting the warmth seep in, watching the neighborhood come to life. Birds chirped outside, and somewhere a dog barked faintly. The world was waking up, and she realized she wanted to be part of it again. Fully and without hesitation, her phone buzzed on the counter. Laura reached for it, expecting a routine message or an email notification. Instead, it was a text from Daniel, the friend who had been quietly present in her life since her husband's passing. "Hey Laura, I was thinking about you. Want to grab coffee sometime?" Her heart skipped a beat. She stared at the message for a long moment, feeling a rush of something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years: excitement, curiosity, and the faintest touch of fear. She hadn't forgotten Daniel, not really. He had been a constant, patient presence, never pressing, always understanding. And yet, the thought of meeting him, of sitting across from him, of allowing herself to feel something more than friendship, made her pulse quicken. Laura set the phone down and took a deep breath. The morning had already changed her, subtly but completely. She thought about the night before, the sleepless hours filled with laughter and conversation. It had been exhausting, yes, but it had also reminded her of something vital. Life continued, even when grief weighed heavily. And perhaps if she let herself, love could continue too. She picked up her phone again and typed a careful reply. "I'd like that." The response felt bold and small at the same time. Bold because she had taken a step forward after years of hesitation. Small because it was only a single word, yet it carried the weight of possibility. She put the phone down and leaned back in her chair, allowing herself to imagine the day ahead. Coffee with Daniel, sunlight falling on the table between them, conversation that flowed easily. Laughter that reminded her how it felt to be seen and appreciated. Laura looked around her home. It was the same as it had been for years: the walls, the furniture, the quiet corners that had grown accustomed to solitude. But she was not the same woman who had lain awake all night listening to laughter from the hallway with aching longing. Something had shifted. She could feel it in her chest, in the gentle warmth spreading through her body. She was ready, finally, to embrace the life waiting outside her grief. The afternoon passed in a calm rhythm. Laura went about her routine, finishing household chores, taking time to enjoy the small details often overlooked: the way sunlight caught the edge of a coffee cup, the faint scent of baking bread from a neighbor's kitchen, the sound of children playing in the distance. Each small observation grounded her, reminding her that the world was alive, vibrant, and waiting for her attention. By late afternoon, she felt a quiet anticipation building. The thought of seeing Daniel again, of speaking with him, of allowing herself to experience connection, no longer frightened her. Instead, it sparked a gentle excitement that was entirely new. She understood now that sleepless nights were not just interruptions, they were messages. They were reminders that life demanded attention, that love could appear when least expected, and that moving forward did not mean forgetting the past. Laura prepared for her meeting with Daniel with care, choosing an outfit that felt comfortable, yet confident. She looked at herself in the mirror, noting the small changes in her posture, the faint lines around her eyes that spoke of laughter and tears, of nights awake and mornings of reflection. She smiled softly, recognizing the woman staring back at her. She was stronger than she realized, more ready than she had believed possible. Stepping outside, the crisp afternoon air greeted her. Birds flitted across the sky, and the neighborhood moved with gentle energy. As she walked toward the cafe where she and Daniel had agreed to meet, Laura felt the quiet thrill of possibility. The future was uncertain, as it always had been, but it was no longer frightening. She understood that she could welcome it, even embrace it, and that doing so did not betray her past or the love she had lost. When she arrived at the cafe, Daniel was already there, sitting at a small table near the window. He looked up and smiled, a genuine, warm smile that reached his eyes. Laura returned the smile, feeling the tension of years ease from her shoulders. They spoke easily, their conversation flowing without effort, covering everything from books and music to shared memories of her husband. Laughter came naturally, unforced, reminding Laura of the joy that still existed in the world as the afternoon light shifted toward evening. Laura realized something important. The night of restlessness, the laughter of her stepson and his friend, had been a gift. It had reminded her of life's ongoing rhythm, of love waiting in unexpected places, and of her own capacity to feel deeply even after loss. The sleepless hours had nudged her awake, not just to the present, but to the possibilities of what lay ahead. By the time she returned home, Laura felt a sense of peace she had not experienced in years. The house was quiet again, but this time the quiet felt welcoming, not oppressive. She moved through her evening routine with a gentle rhythm, savoring each task, each moment of reflection. When she finally climbed into bed, she felt tired, yes, but not empty. She felt ready. As she closed her eyes, Laura thought about the next morning, about future conversations, future laughter. Future nights that might once again be restless, but filled with hope instead of longing. She understood now that life would continue to surprise her, to challenge her, and to offer moments of connection she could never have predicted. And she was ready to meet it all with open arms. For the first time in a long while, Laura drifted into sleep easily, her heart light, her mind at peace, and her soul quietly excited for the journey ahead. The sleepless night had ended, but its lesson would stay with her forever. Sometimes life's interruptions are not obstacles, they are invitations to live fully again.